It's already been more than 5 years since Kawasaki last gave its Versys 1000 a visual spruce-up in the form of the rebodied 2019 model. And however hard you look, it's a struggle to see where the 2025 version differs. But tucked on the side there's a blink and you'll miss it badge that reads 1100, and it denotes a huge performance hike for the latest variant. Despite only boasting 56cc more than its predecessor, the new Versys 1100 is really 1099cc, while the old Versys 1000 had a 1043cc 4-cylinder. The 2025 bike gets an extra 15 horsepower thanks to engine changes that are much more extensive than merely an increased combustion stroke. It's 5% more power from only 5% more engine, and that elevates the Versys into a somewhat higher category altogether when it comes to performance. Performance. The essential layout of the 4-cylinder engine is unchanged from the old Versys 1000, with an extra 3 mm of stroke, 59 mm instead of 56 mm alongside the existing 77 mm bore, to achieve a 56cc capacity increase from 1043cc to 1099cc. That can't explain the 15 horsepower power hike alone, and digging deeper into the engine spec reveals that the motor is closer to that used in the much more potent Ninja 1000 SX. The compression ratio, for example, was only 10:3:1 on the old Versys 1000, but rises to 11:8:1, the same as Ninja 1000 SX on the 2025 Versys 1100. Max power is now 133 bhp, still not quite as high as the Ninja 1000 SX 140 horsepower, but that's because the new Versys engine also gets tweaks targeting mid-range torque. These include new center intake funnels, now 45 mm longer than the outer ones, to boost grunt between 4,000 revolutions per minute and 7,000 revolutions per minute, and throttle bodies and intake ports that are narrower in relation to the engine's displacement, boosting air velocity again in pursuit of torque. The AQ is reprogrammed and the cam profiles are new. Once more, torque is the target here, so valve lift is reduced. On top of all that, there's a heavier flywheel and a secondary balancer to reduce vibration, plus a revised exhaust header and an oil cooler has been added. As on the old model, max power arrives at 9,000 revolutions per minute, and peak torque, now 112 Nm instead of 102 Nm, comes at 7,600 revolutions per minute instead of 7,500 revolutions per minute. Drive goes through a 6-speed box as before, with an up and down quick shifter on the S and SE models that's been reprogrammed for 2025 to reduce its minimum shift revs to just 1,500 revolutions per minute. The gear ratios have been revised to suit the new engine's extra power and torque, and a tooth is removed from the rear sprocket, which either gives a slightly higher top speed or a lower RPM for a given cruising speed. Handling and suspension. The engine changes might be significant, but Kawasaki has left the chassis largely untouched for the 2025 model, with suspension that's carried straight across from the previous model year. That means you get an aluminium frame with 43 mm inverted forks at the front and gas-charged monoshock at the back. On the base Versys and Versys S, the adjustability is limited to preload at the front and preload and rebound at the rear. But the range-topping SE gets Kawasaki's KECS electronic Showa suspension front and rear. It uses skyhook tech, where the bike position is compared to an imagined position above it, and if there's too much vertical movement, the damping is automatically adjusted to minimize it, ironing out bumps and dips as you hit them. The electronics adjust the compression and rebound damping front and rear, while there's manual front preload and electronic rear preload adjustability as well. That might all be carryover stuff, but Kawasaki has made a tweak to the brakes across the range, with a larger 260 mm rear disc and conventional 310 mm front discs, instead of the pedal design of the previous model. Weight depends on which version you choose. The base model is lightest at 255 kilograms, the S comes in at 257 kilograms, and the SE at 259 kilograms, each 2 kilograms more than their predecessors. Comfort and economy. In terms of comfort, The unchanged bodywork and riding position mean that we can't expect the 2025 Versys to be a huge leap compared to the previous model, although the increased torque and more relaxed gearing promises lower revs at cruising speeds, and the engine's increased flywheel mass and balancer should reduce vibrations and improve rideability. As before, the level of comfort increases as you step up from the base Versys 1100 to the S, which gets a bigger adjustable screen and handguards as centered, while the SAE's electronic suspension raises the game another notch. Fuel economy from the revised 2025 engine is claimed to be around 50 mpg, which gives a theoretical range of 220 miles from a full 21-liter tank of petrol. Equipment. On board, the base Versys shows its age with an analog rev counter and small monochrome LCD display for other functions, while the S and SE versions get a more modern version, still with a traditional tach but using a larger color TFT side panel, complete with all the usual Bluetooth connectivity. The higher spec bikes also feature comforts like cruise control and IMU-based rider assist tech, including power modes and cornering abs and traction control, again as on the previous models. S and SE models also get cornering lights in the fairing. Changes for 2025 are limited to the addition of a bar-mounted USB-C port on all three variants.